All right, happy Saturday, everybody. Wall Street Jesus here. Saturday sweep series. As we kick off the month of December, holidays around us, a lot of noise and politics around us, and yet this market still doing its thing. A really interesting week this week. We'll talk about actually fascinating week. And if you're not listening to what the market's flow price is trying to hint to us, and it does take effect, you can actually get caught and find a little more difficult of a time than you have found anyway over the last year or so in this market. And we'll talk a little bit about the rotation going on right now, where I have been seeing the quality of flow go into and the explosion in the price action in these things. Okay, so we'll get into that. For those of you who are here with me live, I know a lot of you guys listen on recording, but if you have any questions at all, feel free to ask any questions about what it is we do here, any terms you're unaware of. You could also go to wallstreetjesus.com and pretty much get a lot of answers there. Go to the strategy section, and there's a couple of short blogs explaining what it is I focus on, why I focus on it, and goes into enough detail for you to get a better understanding of it. Okay, and then towards the end, we'll go through the market, some of the action, then I'll take some of your names that you may be interested in, what the flow looks like there. But once we have this discussion about the flow and what's going on as far as the rotation in the market in general, I think you'll have a better idea, better understanding of what names maybe it's best to focus on. Okay, and we'll talk about that a lot during this webinar. All right, so basically, let me get this to minimize. So basically what took place this week is something that, in my opinion, I've said many a times might happen. Okay, the flow never got there. Price action never got there. And I'm talking about rotation out of growth, okay, out of the FANG, the high beta stuff that the retail trader is just obsessed with, and into literally 75% of this market that has been basically ignored. Okay, some of it more than the rest, but over, I would say, the past, on average, quarter, okay, 3-4 months, you got a good chunk of this market that was in correction, basically, or in at least some lengthy consolidation. And I don't think, traders or just the general public was aware of that. Yeah, you see the NASDAQ shooting to highs every day, the S&P 500 as well, but you had like IWM, the small caps, the Dow lagging a bit. But underneath the hood, you had groups like the transportation names, okay? And while the market just continuously was pushing highs, and these tech and FANG and high beta names just continued to explode to the upside, the PayPals of the world, the Squares of the world, the Microns of the world, there were so many of them. Basically, you had groups like this that were just in quiet mode. The trannies here, it doesn't look, this chart doesn't even do it justice. This pullback, if you were in any transportation names, was it was a little painful. And it wasn't just this. You had retail, which we spoke about a gazillion times. Retail has been in disaster mode for how long now? A year, since the Amazon stuff. You had energy that really, again, another sector we spoke about a lot, that really was having a tough time, getting any traction, finding any footing. Even biotechs. What is this? Hold Even the biotech sector, why is this like this? Damn it. Even the biotech sector was a group that just, wasn't doing much. Wasn't doing much at all as tech and high beta and those growth names continue to go higher. I don't know what's wrong with the IBB. Oh, I know why. Okay. It had that split. Probably didn't adjust to it. That's why. This happened to me on Friday as well. So you can see what I'm saying. This wasn't as bad as retail, and maybe similar or a little worse to the tradings, but you could see this is a legitimate correction here, right? This is a nice consolidation. This is what is normal. This is normal bull markets. You usually see this type of stuff. The difference between this bull market and some of the bull markets in the past that I've traded through, the overall indices aren't going through any lengthy periods of consolidation because of the constant rotation. So in other words, you would have the whole market, or a good chunk of the market go into consolidation like this after a leg higher, and then a new rally would come out of that. Okay? Instead, you just got basically, the Qs breathing for 2 weeks at the most after a huge run and then exploding again. The semis, just an absolute explosion here. So it was overdue to come, and I think we're seeing some of that now. Now the million-dollar question is, how long does it last? Is it something that goes into just a year end, and then all of a sudden the rotation comes back into these high-tech, high-beta names again, like we've been seeing? Or is this the big rotation where money comes out of these groups that have been overheated with a lot of bullishness? I know you guys, anyone who's a Steam Room member or anybody who follows me on Twitter, I posted that NASDAQ sentiment chart a lot, okay? And as opposed to everything else in the market that, there's not extreme bullish sentiment anywhere else, NASDAQ sentiment was through the roof. And it's because of names and sectors like this. So my feeling is, and again, this is just my feeling right now, is this looks like the start of something bigger, a bigger rotation into next year. Okay? The only way we're going to know that is a day-by-day, week-by-week approach, and see. Me, personally, I look at the flow. So in other words, the flow will continue to look like this. And what I mean by this is the quality of the action right now has been in anything but tech. Like, we're seeing some selective dip buying in tech. We're seeing some smaller sweeper activity in weeklies or 2 weeks out, looking to play an oversold bounce in tech. But the quality stuff has been in other things like biotech, transportation. The transportation sector last week caught ridiculous buying. Okay? Some of the food names, food stocks. You guys probably know Wendy's would fit the bill there. Just, again, anything that you weren't paying attention to is basically in play right now. And that's the way I'm looking at it. So, for example, and we'll go over this because this was actually made my Friday, the trade, but like Papa John's, the symbol's pizza, okay? To be honest, if we weren't seeing this rotation, okay, and I saw a small sweeper come into this Papa John's like it did Friday, I probably wouldn't have taken it as serious as I did, okay? But there was a small sweeper Friday. Relative to the type of action it catches was pretty decent size for the name. But just because of the rotation that's taking place, I felt it was worth, as a day trader, taking a stab, betting on that more buying would come in. like we've been seeing in, again, the transportation, the food names, all that stuff. Okay, and that's exactly what happened. We'll go over the action there, and I'll show you how that one small but decent-sized sweeper for this name set up a little flurry of buying that came in, and this thing just exploded to the upside. All right. Speaking of the transportation names, I mean, the rails like CSX, some really nice buying. Like, they were a bit early on this CSX. They actually were doing a little bit buying over here on this pull, and then had a tradable bounce, but nothing special. Okay, there was no further buying there. In other words, they just bought this low, and there was no tack on buying to follow. But then when this wash came, the buying really started to heat up. So as opposed to this little bounce where there was no add-on buying, after this bounce, they really came after it. Okay, and you could see this move on CSX. I mean, look how quick this happened. You know, I showed you the chart of the IYT, the transportation ETF. Like, this was in drip, drip, drip mode. It seems like every single day we're like, oh my God, the transportations are down again. And then all of a sudden, blink of an eye, 3 straight days they're at new highs. You know, and look, this consolidation, this, if you don't remember, was the sector to be in post-election. Okay, post-election, there was no better flow on the street than in the trannies. CSX, UNP, we'll go over that name too. That's caught a ton of action. Just every transportation name on the board, I know them all from post-election flow. Okay, and you could see the strong move here. But after that move, look how long this consolidation was. You know, this is basically since the start, the beginning, early first quarter of the year to now, and now these things are finally exploding out of that. All right, and I just mentioned like the UNP, incredible action, incredible action. It caught 2 good-looking September sweepers with some time behind it, but then there was put selling, some more sweeper activity after that. But again, you had 1 day really to buy this thing, and then it exploded. You know, absolutely exploded. Some of the trucking names, the CHRW, which held up better than all the rest, even throughout the pullback, you know, that's new highs. Even the smaller one, YRCW, saw some flow come in, some spec action there. You know, this is a laggard there, so maybe an opportunity in that name if we see some other action. And, you know, a lot of you guys know Ryder was probably, out of recent, the best of action. I call it top shelf action. In other words, you got flow, and then you got flow that's a lot better than the rest. And Ryder had that. Didn't perform well. Okay, December calls, that's what they played. Got caught in the transportation pull, and you can see here just melted down with everything else. But this thing, you know, starting to come back with a little vengeance here, and who knows? All right, but I bring this up because if you get this snapback and a little breather here, and we start to see the uptick in activity, the aggressive activity come back in, you know, that's a breakout candidate right there. So I'm just painting the picture for you guys of what we've been seeing. I mean, Sprouts Farmers Market, you remember this name? This name, after the Amazon news, when they were buying Whole Foods, you couldn't touch this name. You couldn't. It was a nightmare. It actually caught, I don't know if some of you probably remember, it caught some decent activity and just couldn't find any bounce in it. You know, couldn't find, the selling was just too strong in this whole group. But you can see now starting to get attention, right? Well, I just had another name off the top. Oh, the Costco's of the world. I mean, would you believe me if I told you? You probably know, but Costco is at new highs. Costco's back at new highs. All right, so you basically you catch my drift here. Okay, this is what's going on. Now, here's the thing. Because of the explosion we're seeing, it's hard for this just to continue to happen without, you know, it looking like it's over in between. In other words, it wouldn't surprise me if these things come in a bit, can take a little breather, and then there's another round of buying. Now, that doesn't always have to happen, especially in this market. This market's psychotic. You know, if you wait and miss your entry, these things just run away. I mean, that UNP was an example of that. You know, if you didn't get in at that initial activity point, all of a sudden now this thing's run away from you and you're hoping for a pullback. But I do think where the true colors of this rotation is going to come second phase of buying. And what I mean by that is after we get a little pause here, a little breather, what's the flow look like coming in after that? Okay. And just so you know, and by the way, the financials, which I didn't mention, I don't know how I couldn't mention them just now, but the financials are in that category as well. Okay. They've just looked a lot better than everything else, even of late, but you had this, the financials were dead. Like you were hearing people saying, you know, this recent market rally up until last week, you know, the financials were dead money. And they weren't doing anything. But we still were seeing flow there. You know, we were still seeing Wells Fargo catch buying, JP Morgan continue to catch buying, Bank of America, my God, the amount of buying. You know, ETFs like KRE, which are known to catch a bet here and there. You're talking about $1 million orders, 4 or 5 of them in this KRE. XLF, nonstop. There was 100,000 contract buyer on Friday in this XLF. Okay, so I don't know how I didn't mention the financials just now because it's, you know, kind of was the first to get that rotation, but they're right in it. Again, it's been anything you want. We all wanted to just play tech. Remember, like how excited I was for such a lengthy period of time about the underbelly of tech. Like there's nothing better to trade than the underbelly of tech. You know, in other words, that's the under the radar names, the Adobes, the ADSKs of the world, which got hammered last week. The Salesforce, you know, all those names. The CAVM, which got acquired, you know, a lot of semiconductors. That's my favorite group to trade when the flow is there and they're just getting hot. But, you know, a lot of them have been stretched enormously. And it doesn't mean they're all going to just fall apart and crash. What tends to happen is they underperform. Okay? So when they get too oversold, in other words, when there's too much selling there, too much bearishness in tech, you'll start to see some money come back into them for a bounce. All right? Then after they bounce, as people think, uh-oh, they're back. You know? Oh, that rotation was bullshit. They're going back into tech. Then it'll chop around, be dead money, while there will be new leaders coming out of everything else, the sectors we just spoke about. So, you know, I don't want to get the wrong impression that it ultimately means that tech falls apart. It just means a lot of underperformance, you know, a lot of chop, the popular retail phrase, chop, you know, a lot of that going on while the explosion is happening in stuff that, you know, let's be honest with ourselves here. If you've been trading the last couple of years, unless you're looking around at the price action, you're not really going to know this is going on. I mean, to this day, I see it even with members in the room. They're constantly focused on FANG and high beta and nothing else. That's it. You know, UNP could catch a bazooka. They couldn't care less about that UNP buyer because all they want is Facebook and, you know, Apple and Netflix and all that stuff. All right. So again, something to keep an eye on. It's impossible to predict this stuff, guys, because anything can happen. Anything can change. Anything. You know what I mean? There could be an exogenous event that changes the Fed course, and all of a sudden there's a different thing going on underneath the hood. But you only could take and examine the stuff that we have in front of us. For me, that's both flow and price action. And right now they're telling me that, and the way I like to phrase it, the hot money, which is basically the sharp money, is focused on the other stuff right now. Okay, and that's what we're seeing in price. All right, and if we go to, how do I get that? Some of the action, Friday's action, we got some more of that. Where am I here? Okay, let me go to this. All right, so here's Friday's top order flow, basically, on the call side, in my opinion. Okay, and again, there was other stuff, but they were a little too far gone. You know what I mean? Like CSX court action, and this has been already like 5 straight days of action in the CSX. But just so you get an idea. All right, CCL, Carnival Cruise Lines, nothing huge, but caught some activity, some sweeper activity Friday. You see here, December 8th, 65 and a half. You guys remember how hot the cruise lines were, both flow and price, right? I mean, Norwegian, RCL, CCL. If you followed me on Twitter, even if you're not a member, you know how many times we've been talking about how they were just in love with these cruise lines, okay? And, nothing horrible happened. In other words, they didn't crash and burn, but they've gone into breather mode, as we like to call it, right? Consolidation. Why? This is why. You get a move like this, kind of looks like the semis, right? Eventually, they need to breathe this off. And that's what CCL has, and a lot of the other cruise lines have done. Okay, so, and you can see this, they didn't break out yet either. So this is a potential group as far as a candidate of hot flow coming in, and CCL is maybe the heads up on that, okay? Because we didn't see anything come into Royal Caribbean yet, nothing into Norwegian, and we know that they love to hit up those names when they're in vogue. All right, but again, I just want you to get a picture here of how this looks different from some of the other stuff. Let me go back to where I keep. Oh, here we go. All right, so CCL's one, right? Then you got CBS. CBS was one of the better looking, both, I think, as far as spot, where the action came in, and the action. All right. I know a lot of traders on the option side, a lot of retail traders, they don't like to buy time. They want quick hits. They want big moves. They want them quick. And you guys know we spoke about that a gazillion times. It's unrealistic. You want to catch a nice move in a position, you got to pay for time. You may not need it, but you have to do it. All right, so this, I think, set up perfectly for that. CBS, March 60s. All right, and just looking at it right now, you're probably saying, "Oh God, CBS, who the hell wants to buy that?" And you can see, pretty decent size sweeper, right? March 60s, and here's what's been going on there, so you get an idea. Here's the CBS spot. That doesn't look like irrational exuberance, does it? Does that look like a bull market that's overextended and bubble and all that shit? That's been in all-out correction mode. There's been an all-out correction there. There's no other way to put it. Bear market, correction, whatever the hell you want to call it. After a decent rally, you had a lengthy correction. All right, so Down here, trying to find a bottom. You see a decent order. March, they also sprinkled in some Jans as well, but the March was the best looking sweep there. And, this is what I mean by spot. When you're looking for initial activity, that's where you want it. You don't, it could be out of some consolidation a little higher. Let's say if it would have came in over here or somewhere, whatever the case. But you do not want it up here after a move like this. Okay? If you're going out in time and you're looking for a decent return on a name, you want it at the right spot. That's the right spot. All right? So now we said to ourselves, all right, the group has been a disaster. Okay? The group has been a disaster. Have we seen any recent flow into some of the names in the group that maybe has showed us a little evidence of what's going on? Yeah. Comcast, they've bought with 15 different hands here. Where? At the bottom of the range. They bought enough leaps to kill a small village in Comcast. They sprinkled in Decembers. They sprinkled in Jans. Just this week, just this past week, they were buying weeklies in this thing. That expired Friday. All right, so again, we're seeing the flow turn in these names. Again, it's not one order. We're seeing not just one sector. We're seeing the whole entire marketplace singing a different tune as far as flow. All right, so again, the Comcast last week, again, it was strong action. Like I said, they played weeklies and they're already in leaps. So they actually started early. They were a little underwater, but they continued to buy as this thing was dripping lower. Yeah, nothing major. I think it was here, this one here. So in other words, they started buying here, okay, but they had more than enough time to absorb some weakness. Still continued lower, then a little rally, then a little pull, and they bought it again, and now, higher than that. All right, so that's the CBS. Wendy's has already seen activity. This is just more activity that came in late Friday in Wendy's. Some more Jans and Decembers. May have even rolled. We'll check Monday open interest to see. Rolled some of it. Looked like a lot of it was fresh buying. And here's the Wendy's. Similar thing. They started to buy early, but the best of action in Wendy's was just recently. Or in May calls, mind you. In May calls. Okay? There was literally a 2-day period. It was a couple days ago. Actually, what was it? The beginning of the week or maybe the end of the week prior? It might have been a week ago, let's call it. They, throughout 2 days, just continuously kept coming after May calls in Wendy's. Yeah, I mean, it's been a dog. It's been an absolute dog. But, this week we saw rotation come into a lot of these things. And, somebody was a little bit early, but when you're early and you're playing May, right, who cares, right? If you're looking to add to a position, if it comes in a little bit more, and, you're playing the May side, as far as calls are concerned, what it does over the next couple of days is just noise in reality. So, this is how they started playing the Wendy's. But saw more activity. There was weak on that nonsense sell-off Friday and, close strong with some buying into the bell. Let's see. Oh, Schlumberger. That's another name that fits the bill perfectly. Here's Schlumberger, Slob, as we like to call him. There was some buying in Schlumberger off this pull. Had a little bit of bounce. We thought maybe this thing was gone. Rolled over again. But the difference, again, when it rolled over, they tattooed it. And had a real nice day Friday. They actually sprinkled in some weeklies in the morning as well. But you got a little lift here. A little lift here. They've actually have hit a million different types of calls here. They started off, I think it was March, some Aprils, then they played some Febs. Then as the week started to wind down, I think Thursday and Friday, they played some weeklies on Friday that already expired and some December Jans. So they sprinkled in a bunch of different things. I personally, we were talking about this. Several people in the room actually took a shot on it. They are in March calls, so they can leave a piece and maybe see if they can get lucky. This particular sweep was Feb 65s. Got some repeat activity. Also, this bet on Friday was a doozy. Look at this Google bet. Now, they're Jan 2019 calls, so I don't know what you're going to do with them, but look at this guy. He buys, call it 500, Jan 2019 1020 calls. Okay? So basically, they're a couple bucks out of the money when he bought it, and he paid $105 for them. That's a $5 million leap sweeper. So, yeah, that bodes well for Google, but again, doesn't mean anything really for the short term here, unless you want to make a play on leaps. At this point, you got to wait to see if there's any other action around this to really get excited about the short term. Steel names caught some action. Nothing gigantic, but STLD, why is the bottom of this blocked off? But anyway, STLD 1200 Feb 40 calls caught a sweep. Also, Nucor saw some action. NUE on Friday. X has been seeing action. Nothing huge for X. X can catch its share of missiles, so nothing big, nothing extravagant like that. But X has seen some decent bull flow. Not just last week. It's been going on for a bit. You could see X doing its normal thing, choppy. You guys remember when X caught that nice buying back in May? Remember this into the lows? And this was just a real pain in the rear end type of grind. It still continues. Still doing it. Probably will end up doing it till she gets back up here again. But meanwhile, Nucor saw some block action, non-sweeper action. Again, this is no overextended bull market by no means. And STLD caught the best-looking sweeper of the bunch. This actually looks pretty decent. She's choppy too, though, unless really gets hot. I don't even day trade this name anymore because it's taken me for a ride a couple times. But this thing you could see, lengthy consolidation going for that break. Since what here? What is that? We're talking about a year of consolidation. Yeah, no crash or anything like that. Just all this stuff post-election went parabolic. You can see here. Look at this. We're from 22 to 40, basically in a month and a half. And then since then, a lot of these things have just been, again, that word choppy. And we might, in other words, that's what tech may look like. I doubt it'll go for this long because tech, there's always interest in tech. You know what I mean? But we could definitely see tech get a little choppy, consolidate here, and you're not going to know you're in chop until you're in it unless you're paying attention to the rotation and the flow that's coming in. See, so that's, again, not to sell my product, but you guys know, even before I even had teamed up with Lucci for a service, I'm a big flow believer, okay? That's, I think, the main benefit to flow, okay? Everyone wants flow to be some buy-sell signals, each and every order that you see has to translate into something actionable, but that's couldn't be further from the case, For me, as each and every day goes on, the flow that comes in and the type of action and the type of names that see the best of action, that's pretty much how I'm going to be able to gauge whether this rotation has legs. You know what I mean? So in other words, like when these names were catching the action post-election, we saw monster action. Okay? CSX, huge. Deer, DE. By the way, that thing, back from the dead and then some. Over recent. Okay? All those, the Trump trade, IWM, all those things caught huge action. Okay? But then what happened was they went quiet without even realizing they went quiet. They still caught action from time to time. Right? CSX would catch a bet. Okay? But then it wouldn't translate, it wouldn't snowball into anything bigger. So in other words, when CSX had a pull, there would be some buying here. There would be some buying into the bottom of the ranges. And then, it would quiet down again. So there were still trades out of it. You just, if you're looking for this to continue, that's where you get hurt. Now again, there's other sectors out there that just end up being a disaster. So you could have got killed there, like retail. There were different reasons for it, but but again, the post-election flow, there was some big-time action in that stuff, and then they just went. They got a lot more quiet after that, and tech and other groups started to see the better action. There was a time where Facebook, Apple, those names would just catch action, ton of action every day, bigger size and bigger size each and every day after that. Look at Micron. Right? Look at the type of action Micron caught throughout this whole bull move. So that should slow down if we go into, major rotation mode. Let's look at some of the other stuff on Friday, because I think Friday was a decent day to get a gauge on what they were buying, because we had weakness. There was bullish flow in individual names pretty much throughout the whole day. Even with the Flynn news, all the put buying was in ETFs, nothing in individual names. But it came in a lot of this type of stuff. All right, so you got Google, Leap Buyer. You can keep an eye on that, see if it catches anything else. Maybe for even just the trade. Where is the other stuff here? Oh, here we go. This is the PZZA action. You guys know how much I like this stuff. So you can see the size of them, right? 250, 385, 438, tiny. Decent wood. You have 185 here, 75 here, they add up. But this type of, when it gets sprayed like this, that Uzi type action, a lot of times you're going to see some nice momentum out of that. Okay, and it started off trying to find, oh, here it is, yeah. So here's the first guy. You can see the time there, 1341. And then they came back and hit these after. I wasn't in it for when these guys came in, but I had a nice move out of it already. Let me show the PZ. But yeah, like I said, normally off one sweep, without the rotation taking place, I don't even know if I'm in this thing. I'm being dead honest with you guys. Here's the move here. Yeah, so basically the action came in here, and then you got this. I don't know what created this move. I thought there might have been rumors out there or something, because the action came in here. This was the move prior to this. I don't know what this was. And then it got hot late in the day here and closed strong. So what I did is I got in, again, I was just day trading. So I got in and then raised the stop when after this push higher, and then finally got clipped. Went quiet and then closed stronger throughout the day after they came in to buy it again. All right. So, but again, this is the reason I bring this up is this is the type of stuff, and the reason I like this type of flow is again the same reason I like the underbelly of tech. I feel like I can be early on this stuff, and I know the retail, the consensus out there is not paying attention to this stuff yet. They will. Yeah, just like they weren't paying attention to the underbelly of tech and some of the semis. They eventually did. So when you see the early parts of flow start to develop, and it ends up becoming something bigger, that's when you can make a little money. That's when you can make a little money and feel confident about it. Like I said, I don't, especially as a swing trader, I do not feel confident. Even Micron, we talk about time and time again. By the way, Micron caught a little bit of buying into this pullback, saw a nice bounce, may even see a little more of a bounce. Pretty washed out sentiment for a short-term bounce here. A little bit of flow, nothing extravagant to what we're seeing. But the point I was trying to make with Micron, you guys heard me say this, I have a tough time trying to initialize positions or get excited up here. I just can't do it. Give me something, give me some consolidation now, right? Micron, little rally, chop around, maybe make another new low, shake some people out, chop around, take it into February of next year, and then set it up again. And maybe we could get interested. But this up every day stuff, really tough. Really tough to get excited about. There was another name too you guys might be interested in. I put it on two different things here. Here it is. Ulta. Ulta looks like it caught some call spread activity as well. I think there were March call spreads. This was a sweeper here. Jan 225s. Decent amount of wood into the teeth of the selling. Now, Ulta had earnings, otherwise was a prime candidate for, being a strong suit in this market. This kind of reminds me of like the Costco, sort of, where it got destroyed off the Amazon, and then now you look at Costco new highs. But Ulta, again, I'm not a fundamentalist. I don't know the details about what went on within the quarter. But it was a little bit of a setback. So you saw some flow into the weakness. What price did that come into the stock? Let me see, just so you guys get an idea. 207.60. Oh, so she had a little bit of a rally off that. Well, the whole market rallied too. 212 it closed. So a little bit of bounce off that, but if you see weakness, Ulta, you know what I mean? Maybe you look for an entry if you're interested in the name. That's the way I would approach it. If you were looking, and this is what I was telling members on Friday, if you wanted to buy the Ulta weakness, right? If you were looking, saying, all right, I like the Ulta setup, I want to look to buy this weakness, I'm going to see if there's any flow, and that's where I'm going to get a gauge, for an entry, you could definitely use that action for an entry. All right, you could also take a wait and see approach and see, especially now that it's rallied $5. Nothing ginormous, but it's rallied $5. Maybe sits around here, retraces a bit, and they hit it again, which would be a great sign. But worthwhile off that sweep alone. And the ugly stuff, you remember, it's easy to buy, and you gotta, maybe because I've managed money at one point in my career, for the most of my career, I see the market this way. You gotta understand through the managed money lenses too, okay? When Micron or Facebook, when they continuously go higher every day, you manage money, you have no choice. You have to own these things, okay? You cannot go see your client and the first thing they ask is, do we own Facebook? It's up 100%. And you say no, okay? Because you're going to be out of a job. That's just the way it is. So what happens is when you get these strong runaway moves, right? You can almost, it looks like a chase, right? It looks like they're chasing. They are. Because these guys have to show these names while they're working. They're better off being wrong and showing these names than not. All right? Because they can say, well, Facebook, everyone's bullish Facebook. We just hold it longer term. So they can get away with that. When you see aggressive activity coming into a name like a CMG into the teeth of a sell-off. Again, I'm talking about good-looking action now. I'm not talking about some cockamamie sweeper looking for a squeeze. I'm talking about a legitimate sweeper, okay? And there were a couple of these things, but the first one was the best one in CMG. I mean, excuse my French, but that player needs, he's going to have a pair of coconuts to play that. There's a lot of better-looking shit out there. So it tells you a lot about, the confidence in what that player's trying to do. And that's why, the squares of the world, again, you can see momentum out of it. You could get a trade out of it. But to buy square all the way up here because it has seen action, okay, when it has seen action the whole entire way besides, it just, I can't get excited about it. That's it. I guess that's the best way to put it. I can't get excited about it for anything more than the trade. But this other stuff that we're seeing excites, I could do cartwheels over it. Because like I said, I know whoever's looking, whoever aggressively is coming into that name is coming into it for one reason. He doesn't have to own the name. He's probably better off not being there. You know what I mean? So, and that's why some of the toughest ones to buy end up being the nicest winners sometimes. It's just the way it works. So that's basically what we're seeing flow-wise. Now, again, the financials I haven't really spoken about because they were the first to explode. I mean, I can show you. Let me show you this. I think you guys seen this. I posted this KRE on private Twitter here. So here's the recent bets from 11/17 through here. Okay, like I said, look, you could see even prior to that sort of little put buying, tiny put buying, so sporadic the action in this KRE. Like look, this is a month and change in between, 60,000, 60,000. It's an ETF too. So all of a sudden, 11/17, you got $1 million. You got another block for 61K. There were some smaller sweepers around that, okay, that didn't hit the board. Then again on 11/27, another $1 million bet. Then on 11/28, another $1 million bet. It's just action that you're not used to seeing. And like most of the banks had a big move, especially for this type of ETF. Big move. Again, they started buying when this thing was kind of quiet. Bank of America, anytime the banks are in play, there's nothing like Bank of America sweeper activity when the banks are in play. There's nothing better. So here's Bank of America here. I mean, look at the days, look at that one little put buyer, 19 grand sticking out like a sore thumb. Look, on and on and on and on. So, I mean, my point, what I'm getting at there is we could use a breather there. If you're in the banks, and we have members who have been in it and have been in it a while that are sitting in it. You want to see some sort of pause, or you get weakness like we did on Friday, looking for an entry if you see some flow. But you just want to be careful about chasing, just in general, chasing big moves like this. You've had gigantic moves, and these are banks here. These are banks, and the banks always have looked good in my opinion. Look at J.P. Morgan. Like you had a strong rally here, right? got a little too carried away, needed some sort of breather, got it. They overdid it a bit there. Okay, and this little I mean, put it this way, JP Morgan, the flow never changed in JP Morgan. Throughout this whole thing, never changed. They've always been bullish. They've been bullish in this JP Morgan throughout this whole move. But, you know, you look to this as an opportunity. Okay? So in other words, this is the move here, right? Instead of chasing this move up here, you're waiting for some digestion, and that would be your window of opportunity if you missed that. Or if you traded this and we're looking to play it again. Okay? So you want to be a little more careful now, because in my opinion, you have no edge now out of the flow. It already exploded. And, you know, Wells Fargo, believe it or not, Wells Fargo is one of their favorite banks. Hasn't done really anything special in comparison to the other banks yet. But we've been talking about it. You guys know they nailed these lows to the day. Nailed them with 2 missiles. Right into those lows. Into the teeth of the selling. Into the Kramer bashing, into the Warren Buffett getting out of it, into everything. Strong rally, had some more negative news. Guess what? They bought that weakness. Nice little rally. They took it down again. Literally, this whole entire sideways consolidation here they bought up. Wells Fargo caught multiple sweepers every single day throughout this thing. So, you know, that's kind of what you want to look for out of these things. And the banks, let's be honest. Oh, by the way, I know Goldman Sachs, let me mention it. I know that's your favorite to trade. Goldman Sachs still hasn't caught the bet. Like, I know it has it in it. We've seen them in the past. That 10,000 lot sweeper. Okay? But is seeing flow, is seeing bullish activity. Saw, you know, a couple weeks out, weeklies, Jans. So there's been bullish flow in Goldman Sachs, and you know, this thing really didn't even get cooking yet. I don't think this Goldman got cooking. Like some of the other ones are a bit overextended in a sense. This Goldman really didn't even get cooking yet. And it's not just the major banks, guys. I don't play a lot of them, but if you're interested in them, I know a lot of members, they don't play a lot of the other banks, the regionals, because if you're an options player, they're a bit thin. But I'll tell you one in particular that I was impressed with the action is this BlackRock. You know, pricey name, but my God, BLK. Oh, you never hear anybody talk about this name. And initially they were buying, I think it was spring. It might have been spring, early summer. They were buying Jan calls. There was really some sharp action out in Jan this past spring. So that would be roughly, yeah, I guess this consolidation here. And then you could see quite the move. And she can move. When she gets hot, she can move. But the good thing is, unlike some of the tech names, you get this consolidation that gives you another opportunity. You know, this is normal to me. You know, this is what bull markets look like. Big run, you know, breather. And then this is where you want to start looking for that next leg. So you had a little breather here. This one's shorter than the others, and, you know, she got out again. So it's the whole financial sector in general that's catching it. Okay, so many groups. I'm sure you guys got a ton of names. You probably can fill me in on, and I'll let you know. But you name a sector outside of tech, semis, you know, the high beta names, the FANG names, and chances are, as this rotation continues, it will catch flow. And we've been talking about this all last week from the start of the week. It's almost like the worse the name looks, the better it might be for a trade. Because we're at that time of the year where the hot money likes to find the crap and run that. And with this rotation going on, That's only going to magnify that. I'll give you an example. Teva, that Flynn screwed me in this Teva day trade I had Friday. I had a nice trade in this thing. Has been catching action pretty much from, I would say, midweek to Friday. Okay, caught some really nice action in Teva. So Friday morning there was action right out of the gate. I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to buy some Teva early here. You know, it's a cheap name. It's a teenager, so it's $15. So I'm going to buy some Teva, and I'm just going to try to ride out the day with it. You know, raise stops along the way, but ride out the day and just, you know, try to catch a nice one. Maybe I get lucky. And I thought I was getting lucky. This thing was moving nice, as you can see here. And then Mr. Flynn wants to break news, and boop, I got my trailing stop got it. So, yeah, it sort of did nothing the remainder of the day. But this is an example I'm showing you guys of another name, Catching Flow. Already has seen a lift here. They were buying Jan calls. And, yeah, this is dangerous and garbage. But, again, for a trade, you know, a trade's a trade. Biotech, that's another group, by the way, that I didn't even bring up here because the flow's been decent there. Started off this BIIB, caught some buying right out of this. See this nice little consolidation, short-term bottom type thingy? So you had two good-looking orders in BIIB, which gave us a heads up that there might be some momentum. There was some real nice momentum out of that. You know, for definitely good enough for a trade. Well, it's probably heads higher. Gilead saw a little bit of flow. Good luck to you on that. But I mean, I would probably sell it. I would probably sell it already with this thing. But you know, again, there's flow everywhere else. There's flow. All right. Before I take your questions, I just want to go over one thing because I got a lot of questions on this. As far as the flow Friday, and we spoke about this, somebody asked a question, which is a great question. I think it was the last webinar or two webinars ago. How to interpret the flow in a bull market like we are when you see put buying, okay? And for me, when you get a headline, especially like we did on Friday, okay, which happened to be the wrong headline, by the way, okay? It was misworded or whatever the case may be. But when you get a headline of that magnitude, there's always going to be protection in ETFs. Always. Okay? If not, then that's, without a doubt, extremely bullish, if you don't see any. Okay? But there's always going to be some sort of protection. So the way I look to interpret the flow of something like that, and the way I try to explain to members what to look for, is you're going to see the velocity of the put action. One, you don't worry about a thing until you start seeing individual names getting hit up. Okay, if you just see ETFs, that's telling us that they're just protecting all this buying they've been doing. That's the smart thing to do. Okay, and when you get a headline like that, unexpectedly, you know, you just shoot out, algo shoot out protection just to be on the safe side. You don't know what the hell just happened. Okay? And again, you have more machines than ever behind these things these days. But unless it carries into the individual names, okay, unless you see them keep coming in individual names and the flows start to change, then there's no change in the flow. That was off the headline, and there's some protection of that. That's totally normal. And that's kind of what we saw on Friday. We never saw the put buying get to the individual names. We never saw it happen. Now the call buying slowed down dramatically, but that's expected too. I mean, I didn't want to buy anything. I didn't know what the hell was going on. You know, so the call buying slowed down dramatically, but there was no put buying in individual names. And then what happened was, after the dust settled, right, you had the news out, the market they were selling, Then all of a sudden, little by little, we started to see them buy the same stuff again. The same exact stuff again. The same sectors, the same names. Okay, so that's pretty much how I look at the flow, especially off a headline like that. You know, it's almost like those algo sweepers guys, and most of you guys know what I'm talking about. They shoot call sweeper activity, right? Call sweepers will shoot off any rumor or chatter they hit. So what happens is, let's just say, I don't know, Juniper, okay? Juniper, there's some chatter out there that an algo picked up. Boop, shoot a sweep, picking up some calls and weeklies, okay? Then you see the true colors. If there's some substance behind that, you'll see more call sweeper activity follow that. Because they don't just want that one small sweep. That one small sweep was fired, again, off some machine, just off the news. But if you see that flow now and the velocity start to pick up where they come in buying that thing, then there's some juice to that rumor, you know? So it's almost the same thing off a headline like that in looking at the put action. And then, to be honest, all that tells us is where the momentum is for the day. That doesn't tell us any much more than that, you know, because things can be things can change the next day. So I'm just talking about intraday momentum off the flow. All right, let me get into some names with you guys, and we'll talk a little bit about what you guys are looking at. Sandy's talking about SGMS. SGMS is just a monster. And you know, I don't know, at this point it still looks great. Yeah, it's tough up here to do much with. I'm in leaps, Sandy. So I'm sitting in some 2019 calls, and my plan is to try to leave it as long as possible. But it looks incredible. The whole group looks incredible. And there's been a lot of flow there. You had the Penn National, which had some news with the PNK, and that saw some buying right prior to that. This Penn National, you know, slower mover, but look at this. Look at this chart. The PNK also caught action, and IGT had some activity, as we know. You know, here's the PNK. You know, more of a grind, but look at this grind. And the IGT. So the whole group looks good. The only problem is they are up in the nosebleeds right now. You know, so right now, basically, the goal should be to find SGMS type action in something that didn't explode yet. You know, people forget, we just saw the player, I posted on Twitter too, the player who rolled up those SGMS calls, okay? The stock was in the teens when he started doing that. In the teens. So that action became sharp a long time ago in this SGMS. It's just been a beast. So that's what you want to kind of look for now. You know what I mean? You want to kind of look for sharp activity in a new spot and be able, you know, to catch them right. Like, for example, the GBT. Okay, we were talking about that. Now, biotech, a little more risky, but you want to be able to nab the right spot. And you have that opportunity with rotation now, because what we were seeing is a lot of the same names catch action in that whole tech rally, and it's all repeat buying, repeat buying. You know, now you'll see some fresh action in new names, hopefully, and you'll be able to, you know, find the next GBT or the next SGMS. By the way, this GBT looks great still, you know, and had a real nice move. What else we got? Mr. Ani is talking Micron and WDC. Now, again, Ani, I'm just looking at them as trades now, just because of the rotation we're seeing. You know, listen, if they rotate, and we've seen this in the past, if this rotation lasts another 2 weeks. And New Year, January, we see back to the old same story again. Then it's a different story. But right now, we're seeing the action rotate, the better looking action rotate into all the other stuff. So that doesn't mean Micron is going to go to zero. That just means Micron may do what stock did I just showed you? Micron may look like this for the next couple months. Right? That can't happen. That's more likely. That's what realistically should happen. Is Micron go into something like this for the next couple of months? And again, there's going to be days where it looks like, oh, Micron's breaking down, and there'll be some buying, and there'll be a trade there. But if you get in the habit, if this rotation lasts the way it is, if you get in the habit of buying here and your trade is looking for new highs and you're playing monthlies, you could get hurt. Can you get lucky? Yes, of course you can. But if you're playing that way, more than that, you're going to get hurt. So that's basically my feeling on the whole tech sector in general. Listen, a lot of them got hit over the head hard. So some of them have snapped back. They're bouncing back. But what's going to happen is people are going to be looking for more than just a bounce back. And if you remember, that happened to them. Remember this consolidation? How quickly we forget? That happened to them there. And I'm telling you, I was getting comments, oh my God, that Micron flow, what a disaster. But meanwhile, all it was doing was breathing. All it was doing was breathing. So that's what I think can happen in Techland. You get this choppy consolidation type thing. There's no way of knowing how long it lasts until you see the results there and all that, and there'll be trades in between. So yeah, I would say if you just want to stick with those names, you don't care what the flow is like or what kind of rotation is going on out there. You just want to play these names. I think you can play them. The difference is you got to be patient and wait for pulls, action, and then you got trades there. That type of thing. That's my feeling on it. As long as the rotations last the way it is. If again they're back in Tech January, in other words, we see a bun rush into Tech January, and this was just the little slip and go to new highs. Basically you're only going to have one trade there window, and then you'll be chasing again. So no matter what, I think the entry's on pulls, in my opinion. Sentiment has been, somebody's asking how sentiment's been. This is sentiment. I'll show you right here. You see this? That's NASDAQ sentiment. That's that NASDAQ sentiment chart I've been posted. Okay? So here's tech sentiment. That's where we were before. You can see it pulled in a little bit. Everything else is totally fine. Tech, it was tech. And listen, we've been talking about this, guys. Just look on Twitter, look on StockTwits, talk to your friends. Nobody, even still to this day, unless it's Bitcoin or Baba, they don't want to know it. They don't care. Nobody wants to trade anything else. Nobody wants to buy anything else. And that's not a good situation. That's never a good situation. They want to buy the same stuff that was going up every day. They will get away with it. They will make some money. They will get a taste. They will get away with it. But they will eventually get hit over the head. That's the way it goes. And then when they get hit over the head, then you have an opportunity again. So let's see how the sentiment shakes out. in Techland before we even get to that point. That's, again, for me, I can't get excited, and you've heard me say this. I know it gets repetitive and annoying, but I can't get excited about tech up here. I can't do it. I just can't do it. So we get, now look, you see all these little spikes? You see how they washed out? So sentiment can get washed out nice. Doesn't take that long. But in my opinion, you need to see some sort of wash out there. You really do. And we're lucky and fortunate that there's been a correction in 75% of the rest of the market, because otherwise the whole market would come down and need a shakeout. But I think that's one of the reasons why we don't get a correction. Everything else doesn't need a shakeout. Nobody's in anything else. They're in tech and Bitcoin, for crying out loud. That's all. Everybody's in tech and Bitcoin. You don't think so? I mean, am I nuts? Am I seeing something that maybe nobody else is seeing? You guys don't see that? Anyone I talk to, nobody, again, unless it's FANG or Bitcoin, they don't tell me to go F myself. Young is saying, so small cap stocks, retail, completely not interested. Yeah, Young, it's just, again, it's not even the sectors, right? You see the banks, and you got to understand, a lot of the retail crowd, they're newer traders, okay? And tech is always the best to trade. But they don't, they don't want to trade the financials. They want the big movers, They want the big movers. They want this sexy sizzle of the story. AI, cars that drive themselves, a semi-chip that makes everything so much faster. And I mean, listen, tech is my favorite group to trade too. I like it, especially the underbelly of tech. But I like it when everybody is not crazy about it, So you're going to get these wild swings, and granted, we may not get as much of a pull sentiment-wise as we would like, but I think we get more than this. And it doesn't mean the stocks have to go lower. They can chop around. Chop sometimes gets the job done just as efficiently. So once the retail crowd starts saying, tech is dead, then maybe you can start looking again. All right? Now, I could be wrong, obviously. Okay? I just want to make that clear. I could be wrong, but what I'm trying to tell you guys is I can't get excited about tech unless that happens. You understand? I need to see tech get washed out at least more from here, at least, for me to feel like I have any edge off low. So we'll see if that happens. But what I am excited about is that, like I mentioned, there's a whole universe of stocks out there that have been ignored and have gotten neglected. And if this rotation does take place, what we're seeing, in other words, if this rotation sustains into next year, I'm giving you my personal opinion. Nobody knows for sure. If you knew that answer, you'd be on your own island. Okay? I think there's a strong possibility. That's my opinion. Based off flow, of where NASDAQ sentiment is as opposed to everything else, all that stuff. I think we're there. I think next year could be rough for tech. You know what I mean? Early on next year. Rough for the FANG names, and I think you're going to see outperformance in all the other stuff that has done nothing, and they have done nothing. We looked at, what chart did we look at? That was, just a beauty of an example. Was it the UMP? What? No, I don't think it was that. Hold on. Maybe it was CSX. What stock really did nothing for a year? A lot of them look like this. You know what I mean? A lot of them look like this. So you see, like CSX, this is not the end of the world if tech goes into something like this. for a sustained period of time. But if you got, retail traders playing the breakout, and every time they play a breakout, you got whoop, they're going to get hurt. So I just want to stress that there's always trades. You understand? Even if the market goes into a bear market, the whole market, there's always trades where you can look into selling, catch flow, and then play the bounce back. Always. But I know a lot of you guys like to take positions and look for a decent move. And that's basically what I'm trying to stress with you guys. The breakout might have a tough time in tech as we get into next year, if that makes sense. Sandy's saying possibly IGT is the new SGMS. I wouldn't say that, because IGT didn't have that sharp flow. IGT had that aggressive flow. And yeah, I mean, listen, it could be, but this whole group is long in the tooth. They were buying the SGMS when, again, nobody even knew who they were. Nobody knew who they were. Now, if you were going to tell me GBT might be the next SGMS, that's, I think, more likely. You understand? But we'll see. Again, we always have the tendency of looking back at stocks that have done well and trying to make them look better. You start to look from this point forward and see the new flow that comes in. Okay, like we were talking about, if you guys remember, the auto supply group. Okay, remember we were going over all those names in the auto supply sector. Okay, there were so many names. I didn't even knew this sector exists, let alone how many names were in the damn group until Flo got there. And it wasn't Flo in one name. It wasn't like, oh, look, I found a sweeper in an auto supply name. This sector might catch fire. It wasn't that. There was a name, there was a sweeper in a name, and I'd be like, what the hell name is this? Oh, wow, auto supplies. All right, I don't know what the hell that's about. Then another sweeper. Oh, what's this name? Oh, auto supplies again. Interesting. All right, wow, what's this name? I never heard of this name. Auto supply again. You know what I mean? That's what you see. It's never about the one order. You remember all those names. I can't even remember some of those names. That's how foreign they were to me. Any activity in Tesla? One thing, Todd, just so you understand, and I don't know, I'm like a little baby about it. I'm not looking for unusual activity. So just so you understand, I don't know if you know that about me. I'm looking for aggressive activity. Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be unusual per se. But Tesla, no, nothing that stood out to me. There's flow here and there. We always see some flow there. A lot of guys in the room trade it off sweeps when they're at the right spot, but nothing to where I would say to you, Todd, the sharp money's aggressively buying Tesla. No, I haven't seen anything there. The flow in tech, guys, so you know, into the weakness. Micron caught a little bit of buying Friday, okay? And like I said, pretty nicely washed out there for a snapback type trade, okay? ADSK, they went out pretty far. They bought that into the teeth of the sell-off, okay? That's a perfect name for you to, if you like, maybe put on a little position, give it time, see if they hit it again, and then add to it type thing. Okay? But they bought into this. Here's what happened with ADSK. It's back to pretty much a little lower, but back to where they initially hit this thing. This is where the action came in, ADSK. I don't know if you guys remember, or this pull. Remember, that's where I was all excited about the underbelly of tech, if you remember. Okay, look at this move. So earnings, boop, right back to where it started. All right, so may chop around here for a little bit. There might be trades in between. But, if you want to catch a decent move out of this, you have to take time like they did, and I think you can be patient with it. I think you can be patient with it. This court action, this TSEM caught more activity. This is a semiconductor, severely overextended, but there are not loud, but there's some buyout rumors. There have been some buyout rumors in the name, and it's an Israeli name. All right, so you can see the move in this thing. And even as the flow turned, watch this. Hold on. Oh, where am I going? You got to be kidding me. I'm in this room for 50 years. I still can't get these things right. Here we go. So here's the flow into TSEM, which is already a bit underwater, but you think they care? Oops. One sweep, one block. And then, you have, look at all this action prior to that, So this is a name they've loved, and they're sticking with it, even as the flow has lightened up in Techland since the rotation. So if you're looking for a buyout play, that might be something. These are Jan 2018. That's a little glitch we have. And April's. They do roll out a lot. So I would give myself time. If you're looking to catch news, I would probably go April so I don't have to roll them out. They've rolled out some positions that didn't pan out in that month. You could see there's been a lot of buying in this thing. All right, down from 17 bucks. What are the names we got? WDAY, that was earnings too. But here's the thing in WDAY. Again, this is... So WDAY, we saw buying start, was it here? Where was earnings, or was it November? One of these little things. But WDAY caught nice action, okay, throughout this consolidation here. And then you had this lift into earnings, and then this was earnings. So I haven't seen any other action prior after that. But like I said, flow, the action has dried up a lot. This might be a bounce back candidate if you see some flow, if that's what you're asking, Greg. But the play in WDAY was to buy at the right spot in this consolidational flow. And then, I mean, this was a decent move into numbers. Take that off and leave a piece, try to get lucky. But you didn't get lucky. You know what I mean? But this was the trade in WDAY. Like a lot of them. A lot of them had that nice tradable move into earnings, and then after that, you're rolling the dice. Some pan out, some don't. I think WDAY just announced at the wrong time, like ADSK, where they're just hammering all these things, They're just hammering them all. Like Splunk, I think announced at the right time. And their numbers were ridiculous. But Splunk, you had a tradable move, and you went into numbers, and if you left a piece, you got lucky. But that's the way I would play all these things, Greg, with earnings. I never, listen, I know you guys play earnings. So if you play earnings, you're playing lottos that could go to zero, and that's your strategy. But to play earnings flow the right way off wise guy activity, you're looking for momentum off the action on that pre-run-up. And then that allows you to leave a runner, a free runner in a sense, and hope you get lucky. Okay, but earnings is a crapshoot. Now, like I say all the time, I think if you take the best action out there as far as earnings goes, and you play them all, and you money manage the right way, net, you're going to be a winner. I know you can be a winner. But you're going to run into these at the tail end of a move. There's nothing you can do about it. That's also a point I made, guys. Like, if you got caught, let's say before this little tech pull, there was action in the name and you got caught in it. I'm trying to think what tech name didn't have a move yet. Whatever. Okay, let's say WDAY. You were looking for more, let's say it wasn't earnings, you got caught in a tech pull. That's okay. I mean, that's why there are losers. You're going to have losers. Even if Y's got activity, you're going to have losers. But the tailor end of the move, like, for example, the flow we've been seeing, there's going to be a lot of call positions that are underwater. But do you think any of these guys care that bought Micron and have been buying since the beginning of this move that there's a batch of calls going underwater? They'll probably, if they still believe in the name, they'll take those, they'll roll them out further, and then when this thing's finally ready to go again, they'll tattoo it. And that's the way they play. But that's why, for a lot of the way you guys trade, we don't have the arsenal to do that. Trust me, I tried that whole rolling strategy. I suck. Okay, so maybe I'm a bad example, but I couldn't, just didn't work for me. Because it's not easy. Because you've got to say to yourself, no matter what, there's going to be a couple of my positions that I'm willing to let go south. And I'm making that decision ahead of time. It's hard enough to do that when you don't have a choice. Okay? But when you do that roll strategy, there's always that last batch of rolling that you do is always going to go under in all these names. Right? PayPal. I mean, we saw action all the way up. PayPal barely even pulled back. But let's say even PayPal goes lower. PayPal, we saw action in all of this, right? So any action that came in up here is underwater. And if this thing chops around or goes lower from this point, that last batch of activity is done. But they don't care because they've been riding this whole trend. And that's what I tried to show you guys, even those of you who are members, where I say, you can trade these things, but understand it's not initial activity. You don't have the same edge when you're buying PayPal sweeper number 385 as opposed to the initial action when this thing just started to heat up. It's apples and oranges. So if you got caught, you got caught, and it's okay. If you didn't prepare ahead of time that you could have got caught, that's not okay. That's something we've been talking about for a while now, right? In all these things, stay lighter. It's okay. If the rally continues, you're going to make some money, but if you get caught, you're not going to blow yourself up, and you'll have bullets to fire if the money rotates into something else. And that's the way you got to be willing to play it. Brent's asking if I spoke about CBS. I did, but I'll talk about it again. The epitome of what's taking place here, Brent. Really good-looking March call sweeper. There was some Jan call action as well, but honestly, I'd probably play the March calls because that's the best-looking order there. That's the sweeper there, and at a perfect spot, I think. Perfect spot. And like I said, you weren't around. We have evidence, the Comcast was pretty much an extremely similar situation. Right? Comcast looked like, awful. Just looked awful. But they continued to come after the Comcast, and yeah, Ani's saying it's just a great example of, that relentless buying, off a pull like this. Again, one order in Comcast, we wouldn't ever talk about it. But when you see Comcast sweeper, another Comcast sweeper, another Comcast sweeper, okay? And again, like I mentioned, initially they were early. It was this year. They bought Comcast, and then the stock went to new lows. So now, a lot of times, if it's one order, and it could be a hedge of a short or anything like that, you don't see any more action. Okay? But when you see them keep coming, they keep coming after a name like that, they're doing that for a reason. They're not doing it to hedge into earnings or anything. They just reported. So somebody was looking to build a position in here. He built a monster position in 2019 calls, and around that, there's been solid sweeper activity all the way into weeklies this past week. There were some rumors, I think, with Viacom that ended up coming out late in the week after the weeklies, I think. NRG, somebody mentioned, that's kind of spilled milk for me, Rustin. NRG, if you remember, a couple times I mentioned it. NRG, this buying, so basically it looks so small here. You had NRG, you had a nice rally, right? Then you had this pull. Then off of here, aggressive buying came into NRG. Then you got the JANA news. Okay, so that's what the aggressive buying was all about. Now it's a no touch. Basically, you couldn't touch this thing up here, it's gone. Okay, but what was interesting was the action went dead. The sweepers went dry for a period of time. And then you can see right here, all of a sudden sweepers started picking up the pace again. So it was worthy of a trade. You know what I mean? Me personally, honestly, I would have just took this move and been done with it at that point. I wouldn't even be in it at this point. But this is kind of spilled milk now, you know? This is kind of spilled milk. You got the news, the action's been there. It's nothing new here. So for me to be interested again would be some, consolidation, lengthy consolidation, pullback, and then pick up in sweepers again, and then you could get a trade out of it type thing. Otherwise, there's just no edge in it for me here. Greg is mentioning Walgreens had some action on weakness yesterday. Do you like it? I don't remember seeing any action to catch my eye. Walgreens WBA, right? Is that it? Wait, hold on. Why is this thing so slow? But yeah, that's in a group. That's exactly what we're talking about here. Could easily see some rotation here. Just based on how sour this has been. But again, I want to see to make a commitment as far as a decent trade. I would want to see some legitimate action. You could trade off any sweeper activity there, but for me to, for it to be swing worthy type thing where you're looking for a decent move off the flow, I want to go look an order there. I want an order like CBS. I want an order like Comcast where they keep coming, and Walgreens can catch action. You know what I mean? I've seen some real good-looking action in this name in the past. I remember, it seems so long ago. When did this thing have a rally? There was some, I think probably back here we're talking. Big-time action in it back here. So I know the name could catch action. It's just a matter of being patient, waiting for it, and missing the boat if it doesn't come around. EA, interesting name. EA is a candidate. Things doesn't stop going lower for some reason. I know there's news around and all that, but as far as EA, that's a candidate to buy. They got, well, put it this way: you have the actions in Feb and June in EA. So those are the 2 months to decide what you want to, which direction you want to go. But again, this, in reality, when you have time, this is noise. You're buying something that's weak here, right? There's negative news. They're selling. It's pretty obvious. All right. Sometimes you get lucky. They turn as soon as the action comes in and you make a play. As a matter of fact, EA, I'm being dead straight with you guys. I wouldn't lie. And those of you who are members know, I played EA. I've day traded several times now. I also took it for a swing and ended up flipping the call the next day because there was a pretty decent move the next day. Okay, so I felt it was swing worthy even for myself. But if you're looking for that bigger move, just make sure you have enough time. There's been some June Combo plays, pretty decent size, way out in June, and some February action, nice February action. All right, so yeah, I mean, definitely in that category. I think Take Two came in as well, but this started getting hit first. You know, Take Two has held up a lot better, but there's some EA has some news around it. So the way to play it though, William, if you're interested in this type of stuff, if you're looking to make a swing play off the action, and you're going out to February, if not June, okay, you don't want to get yourself wrapped up into a tizzy and stressed out about it, okay? It's hard, especially on the option side, to play with a stop. It's really hard, especially in these type of calls. So basically, you want to take the approach, I'm willing to risk what I put in. I'm going into February or June. I have more than enough time. Anything in between that's just noise. You know what I mean? It's just noise. Because you look at the day-to-day volatility in these names, you know, some of us are looking at the minute-to-minute volatility in this stuff, and you're out in February, June, you're putting added stress on yourself that shouldn't be there. You like the flow, you like the name, you fire, right? If you're putting in what you're willing to lose, you already have managed your risk. There's no stress at this point. If it's a loser, it's a loser. Don't overanalyze it. But I've seen names look a lot worse than this off of buying and come back to be huge winners. You know, Comcast started like this. So, you know, that's one thing, and all of us have been down that path, William. It's not a shot at you. All of us have been down that path that, you know, you get so worried about a loser. You're so scared of a loser, and that's going to affect you as a trader no matter what. Because some of the biggest winners, I don't know, in my experience, have been stocks I was the most reluctant to buy off action. That's just me. And, you know, CMG is a good example of that, no? I mean, CMG, and trust me, I wouldn't say it. Okay, there's action in CMG here and there. And I never make it out to be more than it is. CMG caught a real sharp-looking sweep when it was that action. It caught a December sweeper, a real sharp-looking sweep, okay? And you could just see it. In the steam room, okay, I called it out because I'm on live audio, video, whatever the case, and I said to myself, I have to let these guys know that this CMG bet is legit here. This is not no speculative, you know, weekly lotto crap. This is a legitimate bet in a name that doesn't catch bets like this. Okay? So the issue was, here's where the stock was. Okay? This is where the stock was, literally. It's not that easy, right? But that looks scary. No one wants to touch something like that. Now, CMG up here, everybody's looking at it all of a sudden. But down here, nobody wanted to touch that. And, you know, there were shakeouts along the way, reversals. Look at this one. Actually printed, you know, new lows intraday. But you can see where she is now. So my point is, you know, as long as the action's there, more than not, the scarier they look ends up being, you know, some of the best ones. But again, the point I want to stress, there are going to be losers no matter what you do. There's going to be losers. Okay? We're in a bull market where there's not a lot of them, but there's going to be losers, and you have to get used to that if you're going to have find any success. And you're going to find even more success if you have that mentality of wise guy activity, because I know from my experience, you're going to win more than you lose if you do the right thing and play them right. So yeah, so EA definitely a candidate, but you have to take that approach. What else? I just saw another interesting name somebody mentioned. Rustin saying, you think Comcast has more room to the upside, and you need to see flow to buy there. The flow's been there, Rustin. It's not a flow thing. It's a matter of chasing now, and I'm not a big fan of that. See, that's my point, Rustin. Again, not to single you out, but when Comcast was catching all that action initially, nobody wanted it. You know, and you're not the only one who's asked me, do you think Comcast has more upside from here? All right, now Comcast looks like it's got a little life to it, and that's where others want to come and hop on. And that's good if you're in it, because that creates more momentum in itself. But the sweet spot, as I like to call it, with initial activity, is the level or cheaper than the level where the action just started to heat up. And, you know, you're talking about the bottom of this range here. So for Comcast to be a candidate to buy again, you would need some sort of pullback, consolidation, action dry up, and then they come back and revisit type thing. And I think that's an option, Rustin, without a doubt, because of all the leap buying that has come in. I think it's a name you should have on your radar, so you're 100% right there. I wouldn't chase green. You know, if you're fortunate enough to where this thing comes in and sells off and they come in to buy it again, that's your entry. If that makes sense. You know, because, again, the problem with a lot of traders, the traders that can't find success off wise guy activity are the traders that are late to the party. Okay, no matter what edge you have in this game, okay, if you think you could just buy anything at any time, any given point, I mean, think of it logically. You know, if a name catches 13 sweepers and you're buying number 14 at higher levels, you're destined for failure at some point. That's not, you're not going, that's not an edge. You know, that's what we were seeing in a lot of the tech stuff. We were talking about that the last webinar, where, you know, people were buying Netflix, selling Netflix for a profit, and then buying Netflix again a couple days later at higher levels. Why not just hold your initial position at that great spot, or roll out the calls and take some profit? You know, but people just get all wrapped up. They see the flow still keep coming. They see the momentum building. They chase, and then if they get caught, they get hurt. Nucor had flow Friday. It was a non-sweeper activity for the most part, but had some Jan flow. A couple of steel names. Nucor, Steel Dynamics, which looks decent too. I mean, look at Steel Dynamics. Oh, this was the name I was looking for. Look at this consolidation here. Look at this consolidation. So, you know, it may not get out right away, but this is something definitely that interests me. Right? You're talking about red hot. Look, ramp consolidation. Ramp, even longer consolidation. You know, now you got signs of a big rotation out there. I mean, this is what you want to see here. You know, this is what you want to see. So again, this is, if we do see that rotation, this is a good example of what tech, FANG, the semis, high beta would look like. Now, again, not this long. I'd be shocked if tech consolidates for this long. But it should look similar to this, price action-wise. There would be opportunities at the lower ends of the range if there's flow there on weakness for a trade. But if you're playing for that bounce back to new highs like we've been seeing in the ramp, if that doesn't happen, you're going to get hurt, right? Let's say this was a tech name now. Okay, let's buy this. It looks like it's going to break out. Oh, I'm done. All right, she's back. I'll catch you this time. Whoop, I'm done. This time, whoop. So, yeah, so and the ideal setup in Techland would be you get something like this, let's say into the first quarter of next year, right? The longer the better. And then at the lower end of the range, you see some activity heat up and they continue to press out of that. And then that could set up, You know what I mean? The launching pad for a new leg hire. But, you know, we're seeing that in other names right now. So we're seeing setups like this catch action. We're seeing setups like this catch action. You know what I mean? That have pulled even more. You know, the Comcast, the broadcasting names, they've been nightmares. Retail, by the way, I didn't mention as much because retail was one of the first they rotated into, has exploded to the point where it's overheated now. All kidding aside, like retail's overheated, if you can believe that. You know, this other stuff, we're just seeing it there. You know, like the trannies, I just couldn't get over this move in trannies this past week. I couldn't get over it. It looks so bad. It looks so bad. You had technicians talking about breaking, I don't know, 200 day or some 100 day. It looks so bad. And then all of a sudden, the flow heat up and these things exploded. Exploded. You know, so, yeah, and this whole group could catch flow and could catch fire. You know, by the way, Ryder, you guys know that Ryder name. That was one of the few losers with some really decent action there. They opened up the largest position of open interest in December calls in Ryder for the second time. They did it here. It actually had a shake after they did it here too, and then ramped. They did it here, and this thing just fell apart on them. But now, right back to those levels again. And these trucking names all look good, all have been seeing decent action. JB Hunt, same thing happened there. Look at JB Hunt. That printed new highs, I think, or almost got there on Thursday. You know, same thing. And CHRW, that might be a little different because it held up a lot better than the rest. And that's why she looks the best of them all. Look, like CHRW had one little pull and then just snapped right back. But I think it was a laggard prior to that, and that could be the reason. But look, these are just breaking out here, right? You guys see what I'm seeing, right? These are just breaking out here. I'm sure you know UPS, FedEx caught sweepers last week. What a move there. Shot out of a cannon. Shot out of a cannon. And they look like dog shit, excuse my French, prior to that, right? Pull, some sweeper activity. Whoop. FedEx, I think, it was even bigger, wasn't it? Oh, same exact thing. You know? So, and there are a lot of names. You know, if you were getting tired of playing the same old names and seeing the same old action, yeah, that's why I was getting excited about names like CAVM, you know what I mean, stuff like that, because it was fresh, new stuff. I was getting tired of Square again and Micron again, and you know what I mean, the same names over and over and over again. Jordan saying he was in UPS last week. That's fantastic. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. Somebody mentioned HZNP. I don't want to get too excited about it because it's a pain in the ass, but looks a lot better. Really needs some call sweeper activity. You know what I mean? Some more, I'm saying. Because what they did is there was some call sweeper activity. They rolled that out. December's. I think I told you guys the story. HZMP, the action didn't heat up here. It heated up a while ago. There was a deep in the money Feb sweeper that really caught my eye, but has been a choppy mess. I think it was right here to be exact. Okay, so right here. So had a move and then sold off, move, choppy. Okay, but then in this choppiness here, this consolidation sideways, they were selling puts quite aggressively, and you had some call sweeper activity. So look, looks good. It's just a choppy, very irritable name to own because every time it looks like it's going to get loose, you get some weakness there. So if we could catch some call sweep, I'm in Jans, by the way. I'm actually in a swing trade in Jans. If we could get some sweeper activity here to create some momentum, we could be, I think, in fantastic shape. Or news. I'll take news. I'll definitely take news. So either or. But yeah, look, bounce back, looking a lot better. But even at its worst, I guess maybe because I've been following the name, it just looks like HZMP. I mean, this is the way it trades. You know, really, it's just a mess. It's a messy name. What else? Anybody else have any biotechs? Ani's got to run. All right, Ani, have a good weekend. Anybody else got any biotech names or anything like that that look interesting? Yeah, IBB caught a little bit of buying. XBI has seen the better action. XBI. Yeah, BIIB, I mentioned earlier, two nice bets right at the bottom of this nice sideways action. Had a nice tradable move already. Probably could go higher. Yeah, you're paying up there, Jordan. You're paying up there on the BIIB now. I would, because this is the start of a rotation, there should be a lot more stuff. You know, we're so used to saying, oh, is it too late? Because it's been the same names, right? If you miss an opportunity, you're like, oh, man, you know, that was a new name. There's not going to be a new name now because it was tech for so long and semis for so long. Now I think predominantly they've hit some of the big stuff, the big names, the leaders. And what I'm looking forward to is that, here's that word again, the underbelly of all these groups. If the flow can get there, that's where I think you could see some real fireworks. We haven't seen it yet. But if that happens, like it did in tech, that's where things can get, we could have some real fun. Right now, the leaders are catching the heat. You know, the leaders of the trannies and CSX, you know, UNP. And again, should all be on our radar, because if there are breathers or pullbacks there and we see some action, you could get a trade out of it type thing. But they've all exploded already. UPS, FedEx. So now, what I'm most excited about is if the flow starts to spill into the underbelly, and that will signal the strength of the rotation, in my opinion. SGMO caught some action. That's a biotech. Had some flow. Decent looking name, too. I remember they played this name once before in the past and done well with it. I don't know much about it. It's a biotech. But yeah, SGMO had some action last week. There was some interesting action, too. They probably have data. ITCI. Do you guys know that name? There was a leap sweeper. You know which leaps he bought? The 30s. I don't know much about this name. But I know the last time they hit leaps was in this NKTR, and what a monster. What a monster. And let me tell you something. This was exactly like the HZMP. Was a choppy mess. Couldn't get out of its own way. And then look at her now. Look at her now. Unbelievable. That's sentiment stuff on the bottom of the screen you see here. What else? Juno has had solid action for quite a while now. You know, the SRPTs of the world. Those names have seen action for quite a while now. So it's not initial activity there. Flow's still bullish. Juno, I think I just saw call spreads in Juno. Thursday, Friday, some decent looking call spreads. But these are all names. Biotech wasn't as bad as the trannies and some of the other groups. Biotech to me was similar to of the financials, where the smaller names were still seeing some decent flow, even though like XBI was in a little breather. You know, like we were in this breather, and SRPT was still catching sweepers. You know, Juno still had fantastic action. So there were still individual bio names seeing some decent flow. Now, hopefully, we'll see it again spill into everything else if it's going to be one of the groups at play. Definitely a candidate. We saw XBI activity come in. We saw some bigger biotech names, some smaller biotech names. Gilead, for Christ's sake, caught action. You know, had a little lift here too. So, you know, now hoping it spills. Another name, Lilly, LLY, caught some sweeper activity. That looks decent. You know, maybe the flow could heat up there. Lilly could catch some decent, you know, they're never really that big, but as far as multiple sweeper activity, can catch some nice sweeper activity and get going here. But that looks pretty good. Right? I mean, Bristol Myers, all that stuff. Bristol Myers, if you guys remember, caught March missiles right into the lows here. I don't know if you guys remember that, but right into the lows. And you see what I mean about time? Let's say you wanted to buy BMY on that pull. There was no better confirmation indicator than missile sweepers coming in. And what was perfect about it was March. So it allowed you the opportunity to ignore any noise in between, okay? Or even take a more methodical approach where, all right, you know what? I'm going to put a starter position on here and come back and let's see how this thing trades in a week or two. You know, you got a little lift, come back in, there's some more BMY flow, maybe you want to add to it there. You know, maybe it came in a little lower like the EA, for example, and if you see action, you could add to it at lower levels. But that's the beauty of time behind it. It gives you so many different windows, okay? So many different windows and choices ahead of time that allows you so many choices ahead of time to make. A good example of that is here, because if, let's say, you bought or made a play on BMY and you got some profits there, you may want to trim some here. And then you can revisit if it dips again. Or you just may want to close your eyes and hold it until you get new highs, and that was your decision ahead of time. You know? But like I know a couple of people in the room who bought some Schlumberger into this disaster, into the lows, because of the action, and took half off on Friday. It was up $2. You know, so they were in March calls, and even though they had enough time, they were happy with the profits they had, and they trimmed some of it off here. There's nothing wrong with that. So the time allows you to be patient if you need to be, or if you have the luxury of catching the lows, you know, locking in some quick profits. Another example, Wells Fargo. Right into the teeth. Boom, boom. 2 April cannons fired right into the worst time possible. This one happened to be one where it just never seen those lows again. You know? Just a Spalding right from there to there. I mean, just because you're in April, that's not a good enough move, you know? That's not something you'd be interested in if you were in April's. Yeah, then on pullbacks, if you want to revisit, you can revisit. And that's exactly what happened. Wells Fargo pulls back. If you, let's say, made a play on April's here, I think they were March or April's, one or the other, and you get this move, you lock profit in on those April's. Maybe leave a runner, let's say. I'm just giving a hypothetical, right? Then you get a pull like this, and flow comes in, which it did. I mean, that works out perfect. Now, they don't always work out like that, but you have that opportunity when you have time on your side. You know, if you're in weeklies or front month or two, you know what I mean? 2 weeks out, and you know, you're buying this, and then all of a sudden this little rally is not enough for you, and it rolls over, and now you're shitting your pants. And a lot of, you know, when you're in those weeklies and front month, a lot of premiums are in there. Gregory saying BIIB had a $10 million fund buy. What do you mean? Oh, add a position? Fund added a big position, Greg? That's what you mean? Nice. Yeah, so Greg is saying had a fund made a big purchase in that BIIB. Well, I mean, that's a decent company too, right? That's a decent company too. So, if these things could get hot, we'll see. Hopefully there'll be some more action in this thing too. There's not a lot of action in BIIB, unfortunately. Usually when they play it, though, I'll tell you this much, usually when it does catch wise guy activity, it's good for a trade. A trade, like we just saw here. Usually there's a nice reaction to it. But maybe this is the one time it catches some heat and could really get it going. Biotech in general. Again, there's no way for me to predict it. I wish I could, where the money is going to start to pour into. But, there's signs. And right now the signs are they've spilled into all of these groups. All of them. Some a little more than others. Trannies caught the most heat. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. But I think we're at a critical point here. Like I said, they hit all the leaders scattered across different sectors. Now when they go and start spilling this type of buying, right, this type of aggressive buying into the underbelly, that's where the explosions come. You heard me talk about tech with that, right, with the Adobes of the world. These aren't, again, the underbelly doesn't mean they're penny stocks. I'm not talking about they have to be small caps. I'm talking about, the other names besides the known leaders out there. And that's what I refer to the underbelly. Usually when flow starts to pour into a sector aggressively, initially they hit the big guys. If it's tech, they'll go into Apple, Facebook, and then it'll start to pour into, the Adobes, Salesforce, Red Hat, all that stuff. All right, so that's what I'm saying. And again, I just want to make it clear. I'm not talking about the death of tech. Okay, that would be a prediction, and I don't like to make that. All I can tell you guys is where the money has been going this past week. Okay, and it's pretty evident now in the market that there's been some strong rotation out there. I think the flow in coming weeks here will tell us a lot about how strong this rotation may end up being. Is it something sustained, like I said, into the first quarter of the year? Or is it something that just maybe is, into the holidays, and then they come back into tech, start the new year? Or maybe they take down the whole damn market in January, for all we know, right? How do we know? So I think flow into year-end here is going to tell us a lot about what the hell's taking place. If flow just dies out, maybe there's no buying at all now anymore. Some of the bad sectors have rebounded, and maybe there's no more call buying, and that might be a warning signal for January. That could easily happen. And that's coming from the bull of bulls, as you know. But I'm a realist. That could easily happen. I mean, we've had a sick run. So we'll see what happens. Anybody have any last questions before we wrap it up? If I miss anybody, I apologize. You guys know I'm pretty bad at navigating the questions. If you have any questions about flow or anything, or about the steam room, like I said, you could go to wallstreetjesus.com, check that all out, and you get all your questions answered there as far as strategy is concerned. Again, what we have offered, 3 free-day trial, no credit card down. You get a decent feel for the steam room that way if you decide to sign up, half off. All right, and I get a lot of questions regarding just private Twitter. Private Twitter is included in the premium membership. If you're just interested in private Twitter, want to get a feel for the flow, champion the trading room during market hours, whatever the case may be, we offer private Twitter separately for just $59.99, and basically you get access to all the flow in real time. Post-market, pre-market commentary. I share the top action, some notable open interest changes, sentiment stuff, you know what I mean? Unusual activity stuff. I post the top sweepers on the day, shit like that. The big missing thing here is the audio video. I mean, that's made my life a lot easier, and members love it because they get a real feel for the action, and basically I'm on audio video throughout the whole day. I'm a degenerate. I don't leave my desk the whole entire day. I'm dead straight with you guys. I've been in the game 20 plus years, and I really get away from the desk when there's action. My wife's not happy about it, either is my daughter, but what are you going to do? They take my credit card, bang it out, and they're happy after that. But all due honesty, I'm on here all day talking about as the action comes in, sharing my feelings on the action, what's more suited for swing trading, long-term trading, day trading, and stuff like that. So that's the main difference, besides also Lucci in the room sharing what he's trading, other traders, what they're trading. You got a lot of different styles of trading. All right, so if you're looking for a particular style, I suggest you start off at least there, okay, if you're trying to get a feel for a type of style of trading. If you already are a successful trader and you just want to use this as an indicator of confirmation, and it's a powerful one at that, private Twitter is probably suitable for you, okay? Or like I said, you can't be in the room, something like that. Private Twitter is more affordable and probably is suited for you, okay? But if you have any question, obviously you can hit myself up, or Lucci up. You know where to find us, and feel free. All right, guys. Thanks for coming out again, as always, on a Saturday. I appreciate it. You guys enjoy the weekend, and let's see what next week looks like. It should be an interesting week. Have a good one, guys.